Hello everyone, it is Christine here and we are going to work on the bag that I'm making for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery for the month of April, where we've got the prompt of bags. And the first project I'm working on is an embroidery hoop bag in a circle format. And as I shared in the last video, which I will link to, I'm using Fleur Woods as my inspiration. So her beautiful book, The Untamed Thread, and particularly thinking about some of her gorgeous floral embroidery and working into a piece and just using all different stitches, also beads. I'm also planning to introduce some fabrics, some thread weaving and other things. But starting with this protea, which I thought was an Australian native, but one of my lovely viewers has let me know it's actually native to South Africa. And yet within Australia, and my viewer is another Australian, people often think it's an Australian native, like I did, because you see it at florists in Australian native displays and other things, but indeed from South Africa. So I love when we can learn things from each other. So since the last episode, I have stitched down just with a tacking stitch around the outside. I'm not sure how well you can see it, and that just attaches the two layers. So the wool backing, the old wool blanket that I'm using, and the accidentally slightly pinky dyed tablecloth that I am using for my base piece, in which I am then painting with thread. And so I'm using these lovely vintage Appleton wools. Well, I say vintage in the sense that they're secondhand to me, and I'm not sure how long they've been in someone's collection before that. And I've decided to go with a 3-colour tone plus an accenting using Brazilian embroidery thread. So I'm using a pale pink. I might have to switch to a slightly different pink at some point if I run out of this one, because I think I'm actually getting to the last of that pink. I'm then using a medium pink and a darker pink, and then I'm using some of this Brazilian embroidery thread, which has a bit of a sheen to it, and I'm using that to outline the petals, because when I was looking at the pictures of proteas, they kind of had this little illuminated section on the top of them, and I think it also just helps to distinguish the petals when you're looking at them, whereas if I didn't have that, they might start to blend a bit more into each other. So I'm going to show you hopefully on a couple of petals how I approach the thread painting and outlining process. And then if we've got time, I'll talk a bit about what I'm thinking of doing with fabric for the leaves, because I want to do a bit of a mixed media, in the sense of using some fabrics, threads, beads and other things, and ultimately ending up with a circle piece that will form the front, the focus point of my embroidery hoop bag, the circular portion. I'm also thinking of doing a square bag to hold this rectangular frame, and also potentially to hold the circular bag when I'm traveling with my frames. So I'm using a largish needle just because I find that easiest to go through, and I'm finding it actually goes through beautifully through the wool and the tablecloth. It's just working very well, but use whatever needle you like. So we will start by threading up with our lighter wool. With wools, try and not go too long, sort of go from your fingertips about back to your elbow. Let me see if I just did that sort of by hand. So yeah, mine's a tiny bit longer. It probably goes almost back to my armpit. So I hope you're having a great day. It's Saturday here. Tomorrow is my birthday. Got a bit of someone picked up that I'd been sneezing. I just sneezed before the this video that I made just now. I don't know if it's hay fever. I really hope I haven't picked up a cold or anything. But yeah, I think people have been burning off as well. There have been some planned burns around here. Not sure. So I was looking at the design, and the leaves of the plant are these ones down here. So I'm thinking all of even these longer bits must be the petals of the protea. So I think all of those will end up being done. But I think, yeah, let's start by working on this one here. So the first step that I do when I'm starting a petal is I outline it with a split stitch. Now again, there's no hard and fast rules. I'm just going to show you how I'm approaching it, but feel free to sort of follow your own bliss. And so with a split stitch, I create just a forward stitch, and then I pop up halfway up it and halfway across it, so really just in the middle of the stitch, and then I go forward from that midpoint, and so that's the splitting of the stitch that you do. And it's particularly easy with the wool because the wool's thicker. If you had a really narrow thread, it would probably be quite hard to do a split stitch. So just getting the right bit for the needle to come through. Just going to move my cup of tea out of the way as well. I've got an elderberry tea, elderberry and echinacea. I thought just in case I have picked up a cold. It would be my very first cold in 4 years, like ever since COVID lockdown times. So let's hope I haven't. I want to stay well. I did have to go into work yesterday for meetings. And there was someone there that had been ill during the week, but hopefully I wouldn't have caught something and picked it up so quickly. Could just be hay fever though. That sort of changing season time as well, which is when your body sort of, I think, just takes a bit to adjust to the changes. So we're changing from daylight saving back to normal time, which means we get an extra hour in bed. But I think it now puts us even further away from UK time, because I was looking at Annie Claxton. She's Arty Fatty Annie. She's got her, I always want to call it Saturday Night Live. I know that's not the right title. Saturday Night In, that she does with her son Tom. And she usually does some crafting and does some other lovely things. But I think it's going to be 5 a.m. because of daylight saving change. It's going to be 5 a.m. Melbourne time, so I don't think I'll get to join them. If I wake up early enough, I might be able to catch the end of it. And Annie was doing a fascinating smocking stitch in a recent video. She's doing the Stitch Along Dictionary of Stitches project that a number of us worked together on as a little stitchy community last year, and she's doing her own vintage take on it, and decided to do this smocking stitch that she'd seen at a craft expo. Looks really, really good. And I'm happy I've started putting together my dictionary of stitches. I will definitely do another video because I've had a few folks saying, how do you attach the pages into the spine? So for those who've asked, I will get to that in due course. I just thought I'd better get going on this, because I know a few of folks had mentioned in the comments that you were thinking of doing some thread painting of some outline images that you had as well. So I thought I'd do a video so you could have some inspiration if you need it. So I've outlined that petal. I think I'll go and just continue and outline a couple more while we're at it, because then we'll have a few things we can work on together. Even though it looks like the design has 2 petals there, I'm just going to do a single petal, I think. So this is where you can just sort of tweak the design, because you are actually painting over it with thread. So for me, this is a very relaxing pursuit. I was just doing it last night, happily watching some videos. So yeah, just following that that split stitch where you're popping up partway through the stitch and using it to outline the petals. So this petal has a little bit that's sort of folding over at the top. We'll see how we go when we paint it, whether we can kind of capture a bit of a sense of that. So just dropped my needle behind, just had to pick it up. think this frame is helping me to stay, even though I've got the camera quite close, it's helping me to stay in frame. Whereas when I've got the smaller ones, I can sort of move them around more, but here I've got my arm sort of braced against the table, and that's holding me somewhat steady. We shall see. I'll probably prove myself wrong by the end of this video, but... So when you're going around a curve like that, you sometimes need to do slightly smaller split stitches. When you're on the straight, you can go a bit further forward. And so this performs two purposes. One, you can actually, when you're stitching, stitch right over and just come in on the other side of your split stitch outline, and that helps to just give it a sort of a raised effect, your stitches. In this case, I'm wanting to have some of the pale still showing, because that's how I'm getting that sort of halo effect around the petals, and that's why I selected doing my outline in the pale wool. And so this wool is Appletons wool, or crewel type wool. It's a thinner wool, thinner than, say, a tapestry wool, thinner than a knitting wool. But really fantastic for doing this sort of thread painting. I might continue on and do the next petal as well, just as I say. So we've got a few petals to work on together. Hopefully you might have your own piece that you're working on, either wanting to thread paint along with me, or you might just want to be stitching away and having someone else stitching and yabbering away, as I say. This one also has that little folded down bit on the petal, so I'll have a ponder how I can sort of capture that folded down effect. Whether I use a slightly different coloured wool for that, that's a thought. So yeah, I'd never used one of these square frames before until I got one at the Fleur art retreat, and it's really lovely to stitch in when you're doing something this size. Gives a really nice tight hold. These things are actually really hard to pull off. Fleur does say over time they'll kind of soften up, but the fact is, yeah, when they're nice and firm, it makes it a really good taut surface to be stitching on, which definitely makes it easier for this thread painting. And by putting the wool backing on, it also just keeps it, sort of stops it from buckling that it might if you just had just the tablecloth. So yeah, if you can, keep an eye out in your op shops for some beautiful wool. Well, they don't even have to be beautiful. This is a plain grey one that was obviously a camp blanket or a cub or scout blanket. But I also at the same time got some beautiful looking an Onkaparinga blue that I used for my as part of my Huswif for the March project for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery. Okay, so what I'm then going to do is I'll start on this petal, and I want to put some long and short stitches coming up from the base. So long and short stitch basically means you do some stitches a bit longer, and then you can do some stitches a little bit shorter. And so I generally try and go up and down close to where I've sort of either gone down or up on the previous stitch. So I've gone to the bottom there, so I'm going to come up next to it, and I'm then going to do a longer stitch up. And we'll actually be kind of overlapping our stitches as we bring in the other colours. So some of them will get slightly covered anyway or stitched into. So even if it's a longer stitch that you worry might be a bit too long, you can always sort of anchor it down with another stitch. And then you can just keep adding the colours until you're kind of comfortable with this first one. I actually came back and added some more of the lights in because I hadn't gone sort of quite enough. And you'll work it out as you go along too. Just add another one in down there. Probably went a tiny bit angular on that, but I'm not worried, as I say, because there's many more stitches to go into the piece yet. That's the nice thing about this sort of embroidery. You can just sort of, be stitching over if you need to. Now I'll move along to the next petal and just do the same, because I've still got a few more stitches worth of this thread here. Probably maybe only one more actually. Let's put another one in there. Okay, and then I think I'll need to tie it off on the back. So as you can see, it even creates a beautiful effect on the back as well, and just nestles in really beautifully into the wool blanket. Okay, so that's the start of our pails, and as I say, we can always go back and add more if we need it. Now I'm going to take a piece of this. This wool's already pre-cut. So yeah, about double. So let me just measure. Yes, actually, yeah, even that wool probably is actually double the length of the distance to your elbow. But these wools can get a bit of wear and tear. Thankfully, yeah, it's not really a struggle getting it through the fabrics I've chosen for this, so it can probably handle being that length. But sometimes you will find with these crewel wools is if you tug them too hard, or even when you're sort of tying them off, they might even tear. So they're not as strong as, say, like a polyester or something like that thread. So now I'm going to start integrating in this medium pink. And again, I'm just doing long and short stitches. And just trying to sort of pop up from, or pop down near to where the previous was. So I've popped down to the bottom there, so I'll try and pop up from the bottom. Doesn't matter if you forget on occasion. Sometimes when I'm kind of carried away or when I'm talking, I might forget exactly where I was, and it's fine. It just helps to conserve your materials, because you're not wasting but you're not using more of your wool on the back than you are on the front. Which these crewel wools can be expensive. That's why I like to get mine secondhand, also because I like to repurpose goodies. But if you've paid a lot for your materials, it's good to make them go as far as you can. Now I'll just come in on that bit. And so again, just think about the shape you want your leaves, your petals to have. Although with some of these flowers, I'm not actually sure they could, even though it looks like a petal, it could actually be a leaf. I'm going to have to read up more on proteas. I wonder what other Australian native flowers I think are Australian native that actually aren't. It's funny the assumptions that we can make. So definitely, yeah, I've seen them growing in native sort of plantations as well. Like in Western Australia, there's one growing in a garden just down the street. I actually saw the other day, and flowering at the moment here as well. Put another one in up here. As I say, you can always adjust as you go forward. So seeing I've already got the pink on here, I think I will use it over here as well. That way I get maximum utility. So it is good to outline a number of sort of petals at the one time, because then you can work this way across them. So I think our fun activity this afternoon when Alex gets back from visiting with his parents is we've got to clean out the linen cupboard. We did, or Alex had a bit of a go through it a little while ago, but there's so much in it and we've got so many blankets and things like that. Yeah, we need to do a sort. So who knows, I might inherit some more linens to use as my base stitch pieces, or to do some painting onto. Some resist dyeing would be good as well. So I'll keep an eye out as we go through, but we'll probably end up with some things for the op shop as well. It's amazing how you accumulate. It's one of my other lovely subscribers and commenters who said she's doing Swedish death cleaning. I haven't actually seen the videos. I've heard people talking about it. But essentially, yeah, starting to go through possessions, I think, and make sure you're kind of, yeah, cutting down on what you have. Because it's amazing how much we can build up, isn't it? So now I've still got some pink left, so I'm going to hop down here and do some. I haven't actually done the whites, not the whites, the pale pinks, but I can still sort of fill in the mid area anyway. Well, not fill it in, but start to sketch it out. Because this petal would be coming from lower down, so the sort of the lighter pinks would be mostly in the lower section, I think. So I was wondering when I was putting this together whether I'd want to like mix in some bits of fabric, for example, in the colours, but I just loved how this was ending up, so I decided to stick with the wools, but then use in other bits of the designs fabrics. So yeah, I have some fun plans for the leaves. And I think I want to turn these little gum nuts into little flowering gum nuts, so that will be a bit of tweaking I do to the design. Just put some more stitches down here. And I can then come in with the paler one down the bottom. But at least I'll have a good base to start with. So I'll tie that off, even though I haven't used all of that up. I'm sure I can use that small piece on the next one. Actually got a pale piece down here, so I'll do the pale down here first so we can see that. Then we've got 3 petals to work on the finishing with the dark and then the outlining around the outside. Passing the knot down to the end, so I'm going to pop up on this one over here and add the pale stitches. I'm going to have a sip of my tea. Trying to get the needle to come up in the right spot. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it just wants to come up everywhere bar where you want it. So I'm here just stitching slightly up into that medium pink colour, and that's how you just start to sort of blend your thread painting. I like with thread painting that it does allow you to kind of blend in a slower pace. I think when I'm painting I feel quite stressed because you've got to work faster if you're wanting to kind of get that really delicate blending. But here you can one stitch at a time, and you can always go back if as you're looking at your piece either fresh or when you've just sort of held it out from where you are. You can then add in a few more little tweaks. Don't have to worry about the piece drying and not being able to work with it. But it does give you that beautiful painted effect. It's amazing. I think it's quite transformational when you start thread painting. And I know it's intimidating for some, but I'd just say just start. Hopefully something like this, even if you can print off an outline of a protea or something, you could follow along. If you've got three variations of pinky, pucey sort of colours, you could even do it in the yellows, because there are some where they're more sort of a yellowy through to pinky. So I'm just going to put one up here. I don't know if that'll be too far for the pale pink to go up, but we shall see. Actually, I think it is, so that's one where I've gone a step too far. Just because there was a gap in there, I thought, oh, I'll do that, but no, I don't think that does actually. Now I have to work out where that stitch is, somewhere there, to be able to pull it out. There we go. So I think we're almost, let's just have a look before I rethread. Yeah, I think there's enough in there. I'll probably need to come back with a medium pink because there's just a tiny gap in the design. But it doesn't want to be a pale pink. Yeah. Extra stitching just to be sure. Save the pale pink over there, and then we'll grab a piece of the medium pink. I've got a piece left from last night, a smaller piece, but we'll start with that. Don't want to waste anything. So this is the darker pink. I might have just said medium pink, I'm not sure. I think it's the darker pink, or is it the medium? No, it's the darker. So we can start. So as I was mentioning before, you can, in some stitchery, you can go right over the edge of where you've done your outlining, but here I want to still have that little halo effect. So I'm going to just either just slightly pierce where I've got the pinky, pale pink, or I'm just going to go just on the edge of it. And again, I'm just going to integrate it into the other stitches. But it's well worthwhile when you're doing this to just sort of, after you've done a bit, stand up, sort of look at it from a bit further out. It's helpful just to kind of get the perspective on, and then you'll often see where you might want to just do a bit of further finessing of your thread painting, where you might want to bring some of the stitches a bit further down just to get it really looking like the petal or the leaf is graduating up in colour. Just thread that again. we're almost there on that one. I'll probably just put one more one in from up near the top. Okay, and then we'll move across to the next petal. So I'm also thinking how I can add things like little doily remnants, little bits of lace and other things into the background, and then stitch into those or bead over them, just to create a really interesting background. And add other things. I'd like to do some wattle as well. So that's where I'll start to sketch things into the design with my thread painting or embellishing that aren't actually in the design. So it's starting with a design, using that to get yourself going, and then thinking what else do I want to add. But I love how Fleur will just kind of start with something and then expand out in her embroidery from that. So I'm just looking for where I've got tiny little gaps and just filling those in as I again just sort of integrate up the threads. I'll definitely come back in and put some more pale threads across the bottom here, because it definitely needs more than what I've got there. So we'll do that together so you can see just how I tweak it. But it's good to kind of get the colours down first and then come back and do the tweaking, because then you can see it in its entirety. Oops, not wanting to thread, trying to unravel. And this is where sometimes the wool like that got sort of worn through, where I tried to, let me just cut it so I can hopefully at least get it through to the other side and tie it off. So it has become a bit fragile at its end. So I just need enough to be able to get it through. Oops. And then just enough to be able to knot it off on the back. I think that will stay fine. So I'll keep going with our darker one. I think is all just, is it all one? Oh, sorry, just banged. My goodness, Christine, you just banged the camera. Sorry, I'll just straighten you up. I was saying I think it's all one piece, and I think it is. So probably don't need that much length. Just keep working on this one, and then we can come back and do the sort of the filling in and adding and tweaking. had some lovely bakery sausage rolls for lunch today. I was lucky because I hadn't planned to go to the bakery today, but I got home from being out and it was sort of 11:30 and I said to Alex, oh, should we get something for lunch from the bakery? But they're so popular that they do sell out, so all their bread had sold out. We did get some croissants for brekkie tomorrow, but they had 2 fennel pork and fennel sausage rolls left. So got those. They make the most wonderful flaky pastry and just really rustic style sausage rolls. So that was delicious. But it's good to have a bakery that's doing well, that makes good bread, because I want them to stick around. Just working back and just doing a few more just little integrating stitches. I think that's pretty good on the dark. I don't think I'll need any more of the dark, so I'm going to tie that off. Save that piece, and then we need to... Now, I think I thought that, oh yeah, there is a little gap of the the medium pink, so I'm going to use this little scrap of it here to fix that up, and then we'll come back in with our lightest, I think, and then we'll do the highlighting with the Brazilian embroidery thread. So I'm just going to fill in this little gap. I'm not sure if you can see it just there. While I've got that in the needle, I might just pop over. I can see a slight little gap in here as well. And then I'll have a look if I want to do any softening of my dark by bringing a bit more of the medium into it, which I think I might do in a few places. May as well use this medium thread up. So this is just that sort of blending where you can add some further little accenting stitches and just have it extending up into an area, just so you really get that effect of it graduating up, but not all in a straight line. Sometimes you might have something that you want in a straight line, but in the case of these in nature, it sort of graduates up more in that painted sort of way. Back over here and do a few more like that as well. Take another one down there. Oops. Don't know what my needle thought it was doing then. It was jumping all around. And then I'll come over here and do the same just from this area up here where I've got the darker. Just put a few little accenting ones in. And it's almost to the point that you can't even quite discern it, which is how you want it to be, but it does just helps the eye. Okay. Tie that one off. Into the orts jar, getting a lovely little pile of pinky orts. Might even have to look at felting some of those and seeing if I can add those into the design. Okay, and now I said I was going to come back with some of the light pink. Got a small piece of the light pink over here, so that will be perfect. Because I just want to get a little bit more little stitches up here is where I feel it needs it. Just so it's a bit more interspersed like those ones. So it's almost just missing some of the little shorter stitches, I think, in between the longer ones that I started with. Maybe the odd long one as well. So hopefully you can kind of see how it does just help to create the effect that you want as you just come back and just sketch in a few more little interspersed threads. I'm going to pop up partway up this one and just bring a little paler one down. Might do another little intersperse up here. And I'm pretty happy with that now, I think. I think that works. I didn't end up doing the sort of the little fold overy bit. I could always have a play and come in. I'm just having a look what else I've got in my threads. What would be, so if this is that's our darkest. I think I'd have to go for a darker tone. So I could always try to do one. And then I'd have to actually do the highlight though in a different spot. I think I'm going to leave it as is. I don't think I'm going to try and do the little fold over. I might try and do it on one of these ones. I might have a play and then I can always show you how I've done that. So I'm going to tie off there. Again, you can edit it. You don't have to follow the design laboriously. And I think, yeah, sometimes it is that editing down because you're just wanting to evoke the flower. You're not trying to do something that's sort of totally photo realistic. So that's where you can just edit it to make it simpler for the eye to perceive what you want the eye to perceive. So now I'm going to use some of this Brazilian thread, again, that I got secondhand from the Sewing Lair online op shop. Got a wonderful stash of, I'll show you the rolls. I've got all these gorgeous rolls of the Brazilian. Aren't they lush? So I do need to be using them. So glad I've got this little loose bag of them, which I'm quite happy to tap into. But I might have to get out the greens as well and do some of the leaves using them because I think that would look absolutely amazing. So maybe even some of these smaller leaves, who knows? Because I thought the larger leaves is where I'll use the fabric and do that with you in a future episode. I might give you a tiny little taster of what I'm thinking in this episode. We'll see how we go. So now what I'm going to do is come up with this Brazilian thread and just stitch over where I've done the outline with the wool. So the Brazilian thread's not as thick, so it's just going to sort of intermesh with the lighter wool. And again, I'm going to try and do a sort of a split stitch type thing, but because it is thinner, so I'm just making sure I don't have a catch. Nope. I'll just try and sort of overlap the stitches to the extent that I can. And this is just to give that sort of definition around the outer of the leaf, but also what I did see when I was looking at the pictures of them, almost it's just this illumination around the individual petals. This particular Brazilian thread is variegated, so at some points it's slightly more pink, some points it's slightly more pale pink. It's not really in the same tonage as the actual petals themselves, but because it's just a little accenting colour, I think that's fine. Just doing a stitch backwards this time rather than going forwards and splitting. To go a bit up. Oops. Almost got a tangle there, but I think we're right. Sorry, just bumperooed the camera. Probably don't need to go right down to the bottom. I'm just trying to illuminate the area that would be sort of caught by the light. So what are you up to today? For some of you it'll be Sunday when you're watching it, or it might be Saturday night, who knows. Got some lovely birthday packages waiting for me to open tomorrow, including a totally surprising package from the lovely Annie Claxton that she sent me. Naughty, naughty Annie. I don't know if she knew it was my birthday or if she just magically picked a time and yeah, just happened to land on my birthday. I have to get my subscriber giveaway package in the mail this weekend too, or all packaged up. I've got to go through my stash and pull out some more goodies. I think that will be a this evening task to finish that one off. Pop on some videos and pull the drawers out. Find some lovely, lovely goodies. On to the last petal, and we'll just work our way around, outlining it. Thought it might take quite a while to do this, but I think it'll only be a few evenings of stitching to get the flower done. And then yeah, I think when I'm working with the fabric collaging, that will be quicker because it's not individual stitches, although I will be doing individual stitches over the top, but not having to paint it all or cover it all as you do with the thread painting. But then yeah, it's what I then do around as well, and also all the other leaves and the little bits of gum nuts. So probably definitely, yeah, a fair amount of time's going to go in, but these are month-long projects. My other little projects are, I think, a bit simpler. I've had another idea for another project, but we'll see if I get through those other ones first. First I was a bit stumped because I thought, oh, do I really want to make like a bag that I'd use going out with? Because I just don't tend to use them, and I've got quite a few bags already. But that's why making this embroidery hoop bag is great. But yeah, one of my other lovely viewers, Trish, I think she's going to use a sort of a calico or shopping style sort of bag, and that had a design on it, also an Australian native design, and yeah, she's going to do similar stitching into it. And then someone else had a tablecloth, I think, with an outline design on it as well. So always makes me happy when people kind of can watch a video and go, oh, that's given me a few ideas of how I might adapt it or do it. Sort of obligation free. I share these ideas if you want to take them, or if you just want to watch and put them in the store for a future prompt, that's a-okay too. Always just appreciate your lovely lovely comments and interactions, and yeah, it's just fun to hear what others are up to. I think it inspires me too. I definitely take inspiration from others. Like Fleur's book is just such a rich source, but even just looking at Facebook groups like the Roxy Girls, K3N, Sally from Dotty B's Facebook group, just so much lovely, amazing work out there. Instagram. I don't tend to use Pinterest as much. I don't know why. Maybe I should. It's just not sort of my go-to. Maybe because it doesn't have that same sort of interaction, or maybe it does. Maybe I just have never sort of used it enough to find that. But yeah, because I help Annie with administering her Arty Farty Annie Facebook group, I guess I'm on there a bit more often because of that. And again, so many wonderful ideas in the group there. So I'm going to tie that off. So what have we got going on here? Okay, let's tie a roux. And then let's have a close look at it. Well, not too close because it's probably hard for you to see it when you're looking at it too close. Now, for the leaves, I want to just give you a bit of a feel for how I'm thinking of approaching them. This one, though, I am going to do, I'm pretty sure, as a petal, but I had been just playing around with the idea. And what I did was took some just baking paper, but you could use tracing paper as well. Excuse me, tickle. And I traced around, just using my friction marker in case it ran off, but it didn't, and then cut around it. And then I used that to cut around, just because I was playing and thinking, if these were green leaves, to cut around a piece of fabric. And I used a fabric that actually had a leafy type design on it, a little scrap of it. And then if I was to then create leaves like this, I could use something like that as a base, but then I could take other scraps. I'm going to grab my jar of green scraps. I could then take, let's just play for the moment. What would I take from here if I was to take something? What might be a good little bit to start? Having a look at what's in the right sort of colourway for what I'd want. I do quite like some of these. So let's say I did want to have, not sure, maybe that's not going to be, actually no, I don't think that will be a good example because it's going to take a bit to get it cut how I want. Probably need a longer piece. And then I can sort of intersperse and lay other little scrappy bits into it. And I'd probably want to kind of be thinking of them in the leafy type shape, but just starting to get some real interest with it. And you might even want to use some of the more frayy sort of bits on some of the sides. That could even be interesting, so you could kind of then curve it round as you're tacking it down. But something along those sorts of lines as you start to create the leaves. So that's what I'm thinking of. And then on these sorts of leaves, I could even trace sort of sections of the leaf, or maybe one side and the other side, and just get that sort of that variation of tone. And then maybe these bits could be done with some different fabrics. So that's what I think we'll play around with next time. I'll keep working away on the flower, but that's probably enough of you watching the thread painting. I want to now show you some other experimentation and other techniques that you can also play with yourselves. So that's just a bit of a taster. Take care, everyone. I hope you are well. I hope you're happy, and I hope you're getting some time to create. Thanks, everyone. Bye.